Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit. The Bible holds a very special and sacred spot in our nation's history. Secular calls for its reading have been part of our history as well. President Zachary Taylor stressed how important it was for citizens to know the Bible. President Harry Truman noted that the fundamental basis of our entire legal system is the scriptures. President Andrew Jackson declared the Bible to be the rock on which our republic rests. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt called for a nationwide reading of the scriptures, and he also called for an official commemoration week of the Bible. Although that's still in the books, it's not highlighted anymore. President Ronald Reagan declared a national year of the Bible. So it's hardly out of the ordinary that President Trump would participate in the reading of the Bible and take the opportunity of our 205th anniversary to rededicate our nation to the God of the Bible. This long history of acknowledging what the foundation of the Bible has given us couldn't be more important today. Our nation is being flooded with people groups antithetical to the Bible, people taking advantage of our willingness to help the oppressed, taking government funds by way of fraud and abuse. And we constantly wonder if anyone would actually be punished for the fraud and corruption being uncovered. Well, I just think that if we the people actually began to call on this God of the Bible, well, then possibly he could answer us in a very, very surprising way. So with that, I'd like to welcome our guest this morning, Stephenie Winheim. Good morning,
Hi, good
Stephenie.
morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Whoever out there may not know who Stephenie is, she's an investigative journalist with The Real Story, and we'll have her information scrolling here in a little while. I'd like to bring Mike Levine on. Good morning, Mike.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Chuck and Stephanie. Great to be with you guys today.
How we doing this morning?
I'm good, Chuck.
Yeah. Mike, you had both of you had some interesting meetings this week, and I'm not sure we might have decided to start with you, Mike, on your meeting up at the Country Club of Mount Dora. You want to go ahead and start us off?
Well, the first thing I like to do is just let the audience know that the title of this episode is Where State and Local Government Collide. And that's really the great part about having Stephenie on today. Stephenie's really hyper focused on what's going on in the city councils, particularly in Tavares, Mount Dora, and Eustis. So she'll share with us what she's been doing over the last few weeks in particular. And then, of course, Paul Renner was gubernatorial candidate. Paul Renner was the guest speaker at the Country Club of Mount Dora Tuesday night. So I'm going to go through some of that. And so let's talk to Stephenie a little bit about what's going on in the cities, and I think I'll be able to interject and kind of give it, put the relationship between the local government and the state into perspective for the audience there, Chuck.
Sure. So, Stephenie, why don't you give us a little heads up on what was going on there? I guess, was it the Mount Dora City Council, or do you have some?
Yes. So I usually try to go to the county commission at least. I do Eustis quite often on Thursdays, and then I've been attending more of the Mount Dora here lately. So last Tuesday at Mount Dora, they had a budget increase, and it was like 6.89 mil, and it brought their budget up to almost $205 million. And this is currently budget season that we're getting in. It's every year between April and October. So I'm encouraging and trying to go through these budgets to find out, what if the state proposes one of these property tax relief bills goes through? Are our cities ready for this revenue decrease, or where are they going to find it? How are they going to still get the money? How are we still going to get some projects done? And why are these budgets so high? There's a lot of money getting spent here in Lake County. So that's pretty much what I've been going over. So to Mount Dora, with the increase to 205, I got some statistics. I guess they have a really high employee ratio. So a lot of our money is getting spent on salaries. And is this efficient and effective for a population? I think Mount Dora is 18,652 with a budget of $205 million. If you took out the utilities, I think it runs like 146 million, which is quite large because Eustis, you have 68 for, so 68 million. They don't have the utilities. Let's see, Tavares was 73 million, population of 22,000. Eustis has a population of 24,000, 24.5. So it just seems like the spending in Mount Dora is a bit out of control. What do you think about that, Mike? You live there.
Well, again, I've been in Mount Dora for, I'm approaching 3 years now in Mount Dora, but of course, Mount Dora, I've been involved in Lake County politics since 2010. And, Mount Dora has always had the reputation for being the liberal county the liberal city in the county. So I would suggest that, and it's so interesting that when Kathy Hoax was running for mayor against Homick, this Mayor Homick, they were literally on stage, and Kathy Hoax said publicly in a debate that it wasn't the city council's job to micromanage the budget. Basically, the city manager presents the number to the city council, and the city council just gives it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Either we can afford it or not. And that was Kathy Hoax's response to Mayor Homick's response that the budget actually has to be managed by the city council. So I would suggest that the city of Mount Dora has been, I'm going to use the phrase, out of control for a long time. And I think that any prudent business person who really goes through the budget line by line, which is what is needed, and that's the way you manage a city, is to go through, and a county, by the way, and a state and a nation, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty. Any business person is going to go back through line by line, and they're going to manage all of those line items. But I would suggest to you as well, Stephenie, that not only the city of Mount Dora, but the city of Eustis, they actually use government as a method for giving their families and friends jobs. So I don't really believe there's any real effort to control spending, Stephenie. That's just my opinion, and particularly in Mount Dora, with all of the festivals and things like that, that I personally believe are not productive, financially productive. So I'll turn the conversation back over to you. I think the city of Mount Dora is financially mismanaged. I don't blame the mayor for that necessarily because he's new on board. I know that he served in previous administrations, but he took a little time off. And uh, I think that the representation we have in Mount Dora is better than it has been in years past. But these boys and girls need to get out their pencil, and the budget needs to be, infrastructure, and the budget should be the number one and number two priorities for Mount Dora, Stephenie.
Yeah, during the meeting on Tuesday, Mayor Homage did say, hey, we need to go through, and I believe Tavo, right next to him, said, we do need to go through and look at what is important, what is our must, and what is our wants. So there needs to be, and that's how every city should be approaching this, every county, anybody, any elected official with a budget should be approaching on what is our role to provide to our citizens with their taxpayers regarding infrastructure, stormwater, what are our requirements, public safety, and then from there, what are our fun projects? Do we really need them? What are our wants and how much money are we spending? Do we need to order fancy furniture? Do we need to special order all of these things and have it be, the Taj Mahal here in Lake County as for Mount Dora? Or do we need to pull back because it's not our funds, it's every working person's money, every taxpayer, every homeowner's. And I think we've just lost that. It's easy to spend other people's money.
Well, I'm going to say to you that based on my experience since I've been living in downtown Mount Dora and talking with people who are high profile citizens in the city, chamber members and people like that, people that are involved in politics and everything, Mount Dora works the exact opposite of that. Basically, the mindset is, oh no, you can't take away all of our fun stuff. And then, oh well, I guess we don't get to have the a proper capacity for wastewater treatment. Because that is a real problem, right? And I'm
Well,
telling you
they're
that the
current.
festivals in Mount Dora are more important to Mount Dora um, um, elites than wastewater and stormwater management. I mean, literally, that's the way this, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, which I granted, I'm pretty 30,000 feet, but just from my conversation with locals who have a lot of control over who does what, they really have the thing upside down. They want their fun stuff and toys, regardless of what happens on the necessity, Stephanie. That's what I'm seeing in Mount Dora.
I would have to agree. So the people that I've spoken to, this event spending keeps coming up. I've had multiple conversations over the last couple of weeks about event spending. And then is the city spending taxpayer money on these events? Is it even helping the downtown businesses? Do they actually gain any revenue? And does it turn into tax dollars being put back into the system when we're paying for the events? Most people are saying to include business owners, that's not the case. And
Well, let me
they,
just tell you something, Stephanie. I manage a building at the corner where I live. I office here, and I manage this building at the corner of East Third Avenue and North Donnelly Street, right here by the Lakeside Inn. I've got 6 tenants here, including seven, including myself, and these are retailers. Okay, so I asked them every single one of these events, how was your revenues this trip? And I'm saying to you that every event where we bring in vendors from outside, the retailers in this building don't do well. But if we have an event where it brings a lot of people to the downtown, but there's no vendor competition, they do very well. So my point would be, if I was a city council person, I would eliminate. Now I would do the art festival, right? And
oh yeah.
I'd have two. I'd probably have two events a year in which we max. Okay, I'd be okay with just the art festival, frankly. But anytime, if I was on the city council in Mount Dora, I would say that I want events in Mount Dora that do not include inbound vendor competition, Stephanie.
Think that that would probably be a fair evaluation from most business owners downtown. They just don't want the competition on their busy weekends. So you have the art festival, the craft festival brings a lot of people. It does help, Airbnbs, tourism, dollars spent. But blocking off all the streets also shuts down businesses for a couple of
The
days prior to
businesses
these
are
events.
closed on Friday night.
I
The businesses lose their Friday night. Now, if you're a restaurant and you lose your Friday night, that is a bad deal. I'm again, Doug, you and I have talked about other situations in which we need to have a little bit more outrage, right? And stand up for yourself and stand up for your best interest, like we talked about off camera. But that's something that for sure that we need to look at. So, look, I'm just saying to you something, Stephanie. I grew up in the hotel business, and I'm telling you that we scrutinized every invoice that ran through May. I mean, your hotels, you're running, I mean, $20 million budgets easy on a small 200-room hotel. You'll easily do 20 million in revenue. And we analyzed every single invoice every single month. Do we, I told Commissioner Campione a long time ago that the county should play a game. It's called Cut It or Keep It. And we look at every single invoice and every single vendor and we determine whether that is a necessary expense or not. And you and I yesterday talked about zero-based budgeting, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. And we need to scrutinize every single invoice and every single vendor and eliminate every expense that is not mandatory while maintaining the quality of the environment in our city, Stephanie.
I think getting on a cut it or keep it campaign regarding budgets is an excellent way to spread some. Yeah, we're trying to get people involved. We're trying to get them to review it. We're trying to get proactive. We all complain after they spend all our money. We really need to spend time on the forefront and proactive of saying, hey, cut it or keep it.
Or keep it.
There you
Exactly. Well,
go.
I'll
Cut
tell
it
you
or
something,
keep it.
Stephanie. When I proposed that to the commissioners back in probably 2014, it blew their heads off. I mean, they were shocked. And I told them, I said, the administration building in Tavares is a round building, and we need to turn it into a Roman amphitheater. And we need to put bleachers all the way around, all 5 stories in there, bleachers, so that all the citizens of Lake County can come into the arena. And then we put a board table in the middle of the room on the ground floor, and we go through the general ledger of the county, invoice by invoice, vendor by vendor, and we ask the audience, cut it or we explain to them, this is the vendor, this is the invoice. What do you guys think? Cut it or keep it? And we just basically decide by the roar of the crowd.
There you go.
Right?
There
And we
you
just
go.
battle it out like the old
There you
Roman
go.
times.
Battle it
Maybe
out.
maybe a little
Exactly.
less violent, but
Okay, well, let's
No,
get this
no
back to.
violence. No violence. Okay.
Let's
Just
get
pure.
this.
It's I guess the what's the music thing? America's Got Talent or whatever the case
Yeah,
might be,
yeah.
right?
Well,
The
let's get this
audience
back to
decides.
normal. Let's get down to some reality here.
Look, Chuck's going to make us stop having
Yeah,
fun. He wants to talk
you
about
know,
real business here.
Time is
oh
ticking.
my
Time is
goodness.
ticking. Right there, you go. So, we talked about the idea of city, local, state. Well, I thought the state was making a concerted effort to go after local government spending, and we had our own Florida Doge, didn't we, for a while? What happened to that, and what does that matter or mean to local governments? And then we need to move on to another topic.
You want
So
to cover that, Stephanie?
well, I'll cover what my thoughts are on it is
Okay.
are we actually doging anything or are we I thought this was in a prep up like all of the city governments, local government throughout the state of Florida needed to take a hard look at their budgets this year because if those property tax reforms come to the table, that we're going to have to do some work and cut it or keep it is going to have to happen. I mean, it's not a joking matter. It's what we're going to have to do. So I'm just not really sure that these cities or counties are doging themselves. They should be doging themselves at this point and figuring out what we're going to do to cut our budgets and how did our spending get so out of control. It's far beyond what the percentage rate of inflation is.
Well, I'm going to
And
say to you, Stephanie, that when you start talking about, revenue per citizen in the cities and counties and all that stuff, that's a great place to start. But if you take a look at what CFO and Goldley is doing, right? Basically, we're using AI to run our budgets and stuff. And again, that's a great place to start. But I'm telling you right now, that until you start really digging in, invoice by invoice, vendor by vendor, line item by line item, you're not going to really get a handle on this. And labor is the big deal in every business. Anybody that's ever run a business, labor cost is typically in most businesses a huge component, and productivity is a huge component too. So I'm going to say to you and Chuck that the whole enchilada here is about management, right? And I will tell you, there was a mayor in Claremont, Hal Turville, who was the mayor of Claremont for about 16 years. And eventually he decided not to run again, but he came out to the Republican Executive Committee on when he after his last day in office and said, these city managers will run these cities about as tight as you want them to. If you want them to have a sharp pencil, they'll have a sharp pencil. But if you allow them, or if you are pandering to special interest and you're spreading the money around to your friends and family and special interests and stuff, they'll allow you to do that too. So we really need strong management skills in our city,
yes,
Stephanie and Chuck.
there we
Well, I
go.
think the $200,000 salaries for city managers could buy us some very good city managers. Unfortunately, we just don't have strong city managers on the north end of this county, Eustis, Mount Dora wise. These are
Let me
people
tell
that
you
were
something
raised up
real
the
quick.
ranks, never city managers ever, and getting 200,000 annual salaries.
Well, I'm just telling you that I was the president of two realtor associations here in Central Florida, the Central Florida Commercial Association of Realtors and the Osceola County Association of Realtors. And after I was president, I served as the chairman of the recruiting committee because we needed a CEO. And basically, back in those days, a CEO of a local realtor association was around 180,000 bucks a year. I hired one for $1,000 a week that got the job done, and really turned out to be one of the best CEOs in the state of Florida. So the idea that the applicant rolls in with their study on what city managers make compared to what we're willing to pay, and can we find a competent person to do the job for the money we want to spend. I believe that's another aspect of this. We really get into the institutional mindset where we're just supposed to go along with what everybody else is doing. when I'm telling you from experience that we have much better alternatives than what we are actually doing. I'll turn this over to
So
Chuck so he can redirect
there we
us.
go. So yeah, right, Mike. We're moving right along here. You had a meeting that was at the Republican Club of Country Club in Mount Dora, where Paul Renner was at. Why don't you give us a little input on what Paul Renner had to say?
Okay, well, I think
This
that the
weekend.
conversation we're having about local government is pretty productive, and I know we probably don't have a lot of time left at this point, but so yeah, my concern about the gubernatorial race is that I don't see a candidate that I like, and Paul Renner is the most likable of them all. On the other hand, he was the Speaker of the House in 2023 and 2024 when Governor Ron DeSantis was running for president. So I must say to Paul Renner that he served when there was a high, probably the
Hello,
most politicized legislature
hello.
that I can remember because Ron DeSantis totally politicized the
Yes,
legislature
it
in
is, and
support of his
I'm in a
presidential
very
run.
important meeting. Can I call you back in
Chuck, we can
about?
hear
So
you.
yeah, he knows that. He
Oh,
knows that.
Okay.
So anyway, so Paul Renner, to his credit, served at a very political time, but at the Country Club of Mount Dora, he said he had a spine of steel. And when you pass the Live Local Act under your watch and you rewrite the election law under your watch, and it allows the governor to run for president without resigning from the governorship, and you say in your marketing brochures that that under his watch we secured Florida's elections, and then you ask voters if they believe the elections are secure today, then I would have to. I did, in fact, at the Country Club of Mount Dora, much to his chagrin. I challenged him on quite a few issues like that. And again, I'm not against Paul Renner. He could very well be the best choice that we have. But if you actually take a look at his record, you're going to see that he got a lot of good stuff done, but he did some bad stuff too. And I could talk more about that, but I'm not sure we have the time. So let's see what Chuck has to say, and then maybe we can get back to Stephenie.
yeah, well, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Stephanie. I've been expecting this important call that I knew was going to happen in the middle of our meeting, and I
Of
forgot to
course.
mute myself. But thank you for doing that. Well, yeah, I guess I was just trying to link up the local and the state conversation, Mike, and that's why I was bringing Paul into it. I know you mentioned that he on his watch, he actually passed the Live Local Act, which is something that really has hit hard here in the local, in the counties and
Well, let me
cities.
just say to you that in a one-on-one after the meeting at Country Club of Mount Dora, he told me that he just really did not foresee the negative impact of Live Local. And you can take a look at because I saw it immediately, right? I mean, when I was running for HD 26 in 2024, and I did one of my first town halls, our good friend Vance Yoakum asked me in front of the camera, what would be your what would be your first priority if you were elected? My first priority was to repeal Live Local, and of course that blew everyone's head off, right? But it was so crystal clear to me. Obviously I'm in the real estate business, so that matters, but the flip side also is that I feel like I have a pretty strong grasp on just basic fundamental economics, and the economics of what we're doing in the housing market, which highly affects cost of living, is antithetical to providing affordable housing in the state of Florida. Chuck.
There you go. So we do have a few minutes left, and there was a lot of different things you wanted to talk about regarding energy production and data centers. Are we still
But
on?
let me just do this in our last closing minutes. Let's have Stephenie weigh in on the requirement for courage in our city councils and county commissions as it relates to standing up to the state of Florida. And I know that Stephenie has some comments on that.
Yeah, I do have some comments. I have had conversations, and it was one of my biggest gripe with some of our elected officials. How did you guys let us get to this point? Why were you not up lobbying the state, knowing that these bills were coming through that were stripping home rule and basically our voices, we the people's voices here, local level, which is the government that's supposed to be, closest to you is the best. And they kind of gave us away to the state. And I wondered, like, how did this happen? Did we not know it was coming? Did we not know, like Paul Renner had said to you, he just didn't know what the effect would be of some of these bills, like the Live Local? I'm pretty sure everybody knew what the effect would be of SB 180. It's a domino effect of taking over rural lands and completely concreting over Florida. So my thought was, why did we, one, strip out the 1985 GMA, the Growth Management Act? How do we get back to it? Who's going to lobby for it? And who's fighting for us here locally against the state legislators and their proposed bills? How do we get more teeth? And
Okay, let
then
me explain
also,
that,
go ahead.
if you don't mind. Well, you know, it's interesting because elected officials are basically chosen from the people who participate in all of these institutions in our localities, right? The Chamber of Commerce. You know, you're going to the city council meetings and stuff. You know, you join the Republican Executive Committee, you join civic organizations and stuff. And the people who participate the most typically rise into these positions of power. But of course, they don't want to offend anyone, right? So the problem is that our elected officials, because of the way that we groom them, they feel powerless and they feel subordinate to, um, you know, the institutions above them. So, for example, you know, we believe in America that we have a bottom-up system of government. That's absolutely not true. And then once you go through the process of being involved in all these various different, you know, bureaucratic local institutions, that's what you have to do to get elected. And it's kind of a participation trophy. And then you don't want to challenge people who you perceive to have a higher authority than you. And I would use the city to the county and the county to the state and the state to the federal government. So basically,
Right.
the people that are running our cities and counties they don't believe that they have authority to challenge other government institutions, Stephenie.
So that leads me to, we were saying earlier off camera, what do we do to get this mess fixed a little bit at the state and local levels? So is it a vote them all out approach type thing? But then we're losing our institutional knowledge, our ones that have the ability to strategize. I mean, when you're going to battle, you want those that are prepared and trained and have some background in it, but you also need the fearless fighters, right? You got to have the ones that are ready to go to battle. So you need the combination of the two. You need the knowledge and you need the fighters, and we need both of those mixed together. And I'm just not sure how to get this mix within our local cities, our county, and even our state officials. How do we fix this mix?
Well, no, I'm just going to refer back to what I said earlier. You know, basically, we're recruiting leadership out of these pools of nondescript people who go along with whatever's going on in these local bureaucracies, and that's a problem. So, ideally, we'll take our, debate in Tallahassee. Dissent is prohibited. Okay, but that is where the best decisions are made when two people who disagree with each other fight it out, and then eventually realize that between the parties we actually came up with legislation or policy that's better than either one of us would have come up with on our own. That's where we need to be. But as long as we are prohibiting dissent and prohibiting debate on policy issues, that we will never accomplish that. I'll close this by saying that when we have fighters, when we have people who are willing and able to stand up for us, we need to leave them there. And of course, we also need constant community input because nobody has all the answers, Stephenie.
I agree. And that goes back to Sabatini, the constant fighter. He's always
That's
fighting.
right. That's
Yes,
right.
There we go.
absolutely.
Well, we
Yeah.
just have a few more minutes. Stephenie, would you like to make a closing remark before we head out to pasture here?
Sure, I can do that. Um, what I just am trying to do always is trying to get people more involved. If you go to a meeting or you watch a meeting, you go through the budget, have conversations with your elected officials. They should be taking your calls, they should be answering your emails. You can communicate with them, reach out, ask your hard questions, and try to get involved. It's the only way we're going to get into some kind of control over all of this spending, our tax dollars, and keep our peace here in Lake County. Please get involved.
Mike, any final remark?
Yeah, I'm going to say that every single government agency needs to self audit by external auditors. That's the way to really get to the bottom of it fast and just have audit teams come into every city, our county, and that's a good place to start. The state, we can deal with that, under, I think, CFO and globally maybe will take a shot at managing the state budget, but we should have required audits periodically. I would suggest at least every other year. And we should have people coming in just to make managerial recommendations as to what's going on and how we could better improve our budgets, because that otherwise we're going to continue to fail in that area. I mean, it's just too easy to spend other people's money. So I'm an advocate for having outside auditors audit our cities and county and make recommendations on spending. That would be my fast solution to the problem.
Great. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Stephenie, so much. And thank you all for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our Rep 76. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you, God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.